the author discusses the relationship between traveling and breaking one's fast. We examined in the book of Salah, if you remember, that in certain situations we have to pray qasr. You have to shorten your prayer. There's a general law that states, whenever you shorten your salah and you pray qasr, you also break your fast. You cannot fast. We have many narrations about that. Therefore, according to the rulings of Islam, according to the school of Ahl al-Bayt, it is actually haram to fast while traveling. You have to break your fast. There are 4 exceptions. The first exception, we mentioned in the book of prayer that if you fast for the purpose of hunting, right? If you go and travel for the sake of hunting, in that case your salah would be full. You don't shorten your prayer, right? However, when it comes to fasting, the same would apply. That you are traveling, you are going to hunt, but in that case you would keep your fast. So this is a type of traveling, but because you're doing that for hunting, then you would have to keep your fast. من سافر بقصد الصيد فإنه يتم الصلاة ويصوم. You pray in full and you also maintain your fast. So if you know anyone in the community who travels maybe in the month of Ramadan, especially when Ramadan was like in October, November, hunting season, deer season, right? And they would travel for that, remind them that they have to keep their fast. They cannot break their fast even if they're traveling to up north. They're going maybe 100 miles, right? Maybe even more than that, 200 miles. But because they're traveling for the purpose of hunting, they must keep their fast. They cannot break their fast. So that's the first exception. The second exception is that if you travel in the month of Ramadan from your hometown and you leave after Dhuhr, after the Zawal, after the time of Salatul Dhuhr. Let's say Salatul Dhuhr is at 12:45 p.m. You leave after 12:45 p.m. Now, as you're leaving, you become a traveler. So if you wanted to pray Salatul Dhuhr at 2 p.m., when you got to Toledo, for instance, you pray qasr, right? Because you're traveling. But you must keep your fast and you don't break your fast. So this is one of those exceptions in which you're fasting and praying qasr at the same time. Because normally people would think whenever you're fasting, you're praying full, and whenever you're breaking your fast, you pray qasr. That is normally the case, but this is an exception. You're actually fasting, but you're praying qasr. Why? Because you left after Dhuhr. So this is the second exception that the author talks about. The third exception that the author talks about, من دخل إلى بيته بعد الزوال, if you arrive your hometown after 12:45 p.m., after Dhuhr. So in the morning you were traveling. Since you were traveling, you broke your fast. At 9 a.m. you had your coffee because you were traveling. Now you get to your hometown after Dhuhr. In that case, you want to pray Salatul Dhuhr now. How do you pray Salatul Dhuhr? Full or qasr? You pray full because you're in your hometown. But are you fasting or not fasting? No. You're not fasting. Why? Because you were traveling earlier in the day. So this is another exception in which you're praying full, right? But you're not fasting. Shahr Ramadan, you're praying full, but you're not fasting. This is because you arrived after Dhuhr. Now what happens if you arrive before Dhuhr and you did not eat anything?
You have to stay fasting.
You have to stay fasting and make the niyyah for fasting. Let's say I was traveling. I arrived my hometown at 9 a.m. But before 9 a.m., from Fajr till 9 a.m., I didn't really eat anything. I wasn't hungry. I didn't want to eat anything while traveling. Now that I got to my hometown at 9 a.m., I have to fast that day. Yes, you have to fast that day. It's no longer optional. Yes, it was optional for you when you were traveling. at 7 a.m. when you were on the plane, it was optional for you. Do I break my fast or do I plan on fasting later on? It was optional for you. But assuming you didn't eat anything, you didn't drink anything until you arrived your hometown before Dhuhr, you would have to fast that day. That's the third exception. The fourth exception, do you remember those 4 areas in which you are allowed to pray full? Mecca, Medina, Karbala, Kufa. We call them Mawatin al-Takhir. These 4 areas in which it's optional for you to either pray full or qasr. Even though you're a traveler there, you can pray full. That only applies to what? Prayers. To prayers. It does not apply to fasting. So if you go to Karbala or Mecca or Medina or Kufa in the month of Ramadan and you stay there less than 10 days, you cannot fast. You would have to break your fast because you're a traveler. Yes, brother.
Could you briefly explain why we can pray for Tamam in like Kufa or Karbala?
These 4 holy cities, Mecca, Medina, Karbala and Kufa, they are like your hometown spiritually. So it seems that Allah does not even want you to feel like a traveler. When you're in Mecca and visiting the house of Allah, it's as if Allah is saying, this is your home. And so you can pray full. That could be the reason. Just to make the traveler feel at home and not feel like they are traveling. That might be one of the wisdoms behind it. So these are 4 exceptions in which you may be fasting but you're praying qasr, or you may be breaking your fast and you're praying full. Other than these 4 exceptions, whenever you're fasting, you're praying full, and whenever you're not fasting, you're breaking your fast, you're praying qasr. That is the general ruling here.